No, there was nothing promised to me for doing this interview.
Excellent.
Yes, everything that I say at this interview will be the truth. I met Donald Trump at some parties I attend that I was working for Mr. Jeffrey Epstein. There was about 3 or 4 times that I had encounters with Donald Trump. I was 13. The first time that I met Donald Trump was at a party at Jeffrey Epstein's mansion. There was an orgy going on, and he was kind of watching off in the distance. And he basically asked if I could come over and give him a hand job. And at first, I wasn't very comfortable with it. This was like my first party, and I didn't think that was my responsibility. But my recruiter told me that I needed to do it, so I agreed to. And then he, I began to. Sorry, this is a little difficult, but before I gave him a hand job, he kind of slapped my hand away and said, "You need to use a glove." And the recruiter, he ran over and handed me a glove and said, "No one touches Mr. Trump's penis without a glove." So I needed to use a glove. I gave him a hand job, and then immediately after, he had an orgasm, he left, and I didn't see him again at that party. Jeffrey Epstein is a billionaire friend of Donald Trump's that was responsible for throwing the sex parties. I originally came to New York trying to be a model, and in my travels, I met a girl named Tiffany there who was very interested in me and said that, that's what she did, is that she helped girls, get what they wanted, and she could help me get into modeling. That she knew a lot of people that were higher ups, and that it would be no problem. And so that's why, but I would just basically have to come model at a couple of events and meet some people. There would be no sweat. So of course I went. That sounded like no big deal. And she was recruiting the girls to come to these parties. And they all looked, most of them were, my age. There was, maybe a couple girls that were maybe 14 or 15, but it seemed to me like we were all very young. So, and as far as Donald Trump, he knew that I was 13, and I believe that Tiffany told him. He seemed to take a liking to me because I was I was so young, and I was also a virgin. So I don't know. It seemed like he wasn't really into having girls that were liked by the other guys. He kind of, the whole glove. He kind of liked things to be his first. If that, for lack of a better term, but he was the one who wanted to get to a girl before everyone else did. Donald Trump knew that I was 13 because the first night that I was there, Tiffany actually suggested that she had a whole bunch of different wigs, and I expressed interest in them. I always told her that I would love to walk around with blue hair, and so I tried some on, and there was a blonde wig that she said that looked great on me. So I wore that wig, and Donald Trump had specifically asked about me because I remind him of his daughter, and she said, well, she's 13 as well. So he knew the first time that he saw me, but he took a liking to me because I looked like his daughter. The second time that I saw Mr. Trump was same scenario. He was onlooking at an orgy, and Tiffany came over to me and said that Donald Trump had requested that I perform oral sex on him, and I'd never done something like that with anybody, so I was a little nervous. So I walked up to him, and he was sitting there very proud, and I just kind of moved in that direction, and he kind of slapped me away and said, "What are you doing? You know, you need to put a condom on," like I was some like dirty filth or something without a condom. Tiffany ran over and handed him a condom and apologized, profusely, and said that would never happen again. And she looked at me and scolded me basically like a child and said that, that's not how, Donald Trump always, anytime you touch his penis, it needs to have a condom on or a glove, you owe, and especially when it comes to performing oral sex. So I apologized, and then I performed oral sex on him. And once he was done, he hopped up, and that's the last I saw of him at that party. It's like once he's done, he's out. So.
Okay.
Sometimes before some of the things that I noticed that were weird with him was sometimes before the parties he would come over, and Jeffrey Epstein and himself would kind of banter back and forth, and he was Donald Trump was very racist. He said a lot of racist things. Like there was a lot of comments towards Mr. Epstein about being Jewish, and called him a Jew bastard, so that he was cheap, and there was some words I didn't even understand. Something about the shape of his penis being directly related to his mole, or I'm not too familiar with the Jewish tradition, so, but I'm pretty sure that whatever he was saying wasn't very nice. Also referred to people of Hispanic or Hispanic name, they called them spics. That was around the first time that the World Trade Center had gotten the bombed in the 90s. And he was talking about the towel heads and how we would just be better off if we didn't let him in, or basically got rid of every single one that was already here. And I felt it made me really uncomfortable, really, really uncomfortable. He also loved to call black people niggers, and Arabic people he called sand niggers. The only time that he tried to give me some money was our last encounter together, where he acted out a rape fantasy. I was forced to give that money back because Jeffrey Epstein paid us after the party. So, but he just gave me the money. I don't even know why he gave it to me. Maybe to make me feel more cheap, but it was a rape fantasy to him, but I wasn't playing. So there was those two times, and then there was after the next thing that Tiffany approached me with was that he had a fantasy where he walked in on his maids basically making out, and that it was some type of fantasy for him. So she asked, I was at that point, I was like, I don't want to be involved with anything that has to do with him. But she's like, you were just basically the other one. So there's nothing that you will have to do. Just don't, he's requesting you to be involved. So I reluctantly, I felt like I didn't have a choice there, but it was basically he's walking in, his two maids. I was one of the maids. I was the white maid. And there was a Spanish girl, Maria, who was the Hispanic maid. And we were making out, and he walks in, and he gets really angry and threatens to call immigration on Maria if she doesn't come over and make things right and give him a blowjob. So while she is over there giving him a blowjob, I am just trying to, I'm supposed to look scared, like, oh no, and cleaning up things and pretending like I'm trying to go back to my job as a maid. And then he's being so rude to Maria. I felt so bad for her. Even though I guess it just didn't seem like a fantasy. It didn't seem like it's the weirdest fantasy as far as that. He was threatening to call immigration on her. so that she didn't know how to, she wasn't even near going down to give him, perform oral sex on him before he slapped her away and said, what are you doing? You need to put a condom on, and she's trying to, I'm so sorry, and he's like, you can't even understand what you're saying, and just, speak English, he called her derogatory comments, and then he's like, you know what, you don't know what you're doing, have her come over and show you how it's done. And so I said that I didn't, I had to go over there or else he was going to call immigration on Maria. I didn't know if it was true or not, but I felt that, he said that if I didn't show her how to perform oral sex on him, then he was going to call immigration on her and then get rid of us both. It was anything that was in relation to him getting off or being satisfied or happy had to do with him being in power, but extreme power, and it's very hard to even. It was always intimidating when he was like that. It was always, you didn't really know if it was true or. Like if you refused to play along, would he really call immigration on Maria? Would he really get rid of us both? And I didn't even want to know what that meant. I always didn't. It wasn't a game. It just felt like it wasn't a game.
Yeah.
The one night that I had the blonde wig on, he mentioned that I looked like, that I reminded him of his daughter. And actually the maid fantasy, I didn't have a blonde wig on. I was trying to stay away from blonde wigs at the time. But he actually told Tiffany that that's what he wanted me to wear. Like he wanted it, and anytime I put it on, anytime I had it on and he'd see me, he would say, "Oh man, you look," and it wasn't like "Oh, you remind me of my daughter." It was this sick, evil, like, you remind me of my daughter. It was just this weird pleasure, sick smile. Like I don't even want to know what he was thinking about. I could imagine what he was thinking about. The last encounter that I had with Donald Trump, Tiffany approached me about a rape scene that was supposed to be played out, and I didn't like the sound of that at all. But Tiffany assured me that it wasn't going to be, if it was anything I wasn't comfortable with, we could stop. That she would be right there, and that it wouldn't get out of hand, and that it was a fantasy, like it wasn't really going to happen. And so I told her that I would. She basically, Tiffany was always nice to me. It wasn't that I trusted her, else and I wouldn't always trusted her or done what she asked me to. But she was there, and he came in, and I was basically tied to a bed with pantyhose, and he tied him. They were so tight it hurt to even lay there. And I tried to say something, and it was like, he just, shut up, shut up, bitch. It was basically like he was being really, really rough. And I understand. It just didn't seem like a fantasy. And I started to get scared, and he was, basically ripping my clothes off, and I was actually I got freaked out. I told him that I didn't want to do this. I was, I screamed over for Tiffany. She was like, "Mr. Trump, she's only, this is scaring her." And he's like, "Oh, you shut up too." He just turned into this animal. It was like a completely different person. It was like everyone in the room was scared of him, and I was. It was like I couldn't do anything about it, and he ripped off all my clothes, and he started to basically have sex with me, and I was screaming because I'd never had sex before. It was my first time, and Tiffany was yelling at him too. She was saying I was a virgin, and he told us to just shut the fuck up, and just basically took my virginity while I was crying and telling him to stop. And that's basically begging for him to just stop. And Tiffany didn't know what else to do either. No one was there to help us, or me. And so after the fact, he basically finishes it. It didn't take that long at all. I mean, but it was just, it felt like it was like 5.5 hours. It felt like it was an eternity. Like, I don't even know how long it was, but he was done, and I was crying, and Tiffany was consulting me, and she was, apologizing. She told me that she just never put me in that situation again. But he comes over mad because I was crying, and he said that I should be thankful that someone like Donald Trump took my virginity. He basically didn't say took my virginity. He said, I should be glad that someone like Donald Trump popped my cherry and not some pimply little 14-year-old. And I just was like, what if I said, what if I get pregnant? Not even talking to him. I didn't want to talk to him. I was talking to Tiffany. And he said, well, you'll get an abortion then, bitch, and then just walked away. And I asked, I told Tiffany I needed to go home. I never went back again.
The only Epstein victim who officially filed a lawsuit against Donald Trump. She alleges that Donald Trump sexually assaulted her and raped her on 4 different occasions. These rapes occurred in 1994 when she was 13 years old. Katie's original lawsuit, filed in California, was thrown out by the judge. She had filed a civil rights suit but failed to actually state an applicable civil rights claim.
Katie filed a second lawsuit in New York with 2 highly credible lawyers guiding her, Thomas Mager and Lisa Bloom.
Katie withdrew her second claim after a hacker hacked into Lisa Bloom's server and Katie's personal details were found out. Up until that point, Katie was simply known as Jane Doe. After that, the death threats came pouring in, including a bomb threat.
Lost a daughter and their home in a tragic explosion. Family members say 19-year-old Katie Johnson has now been upgraded from critical to serious condition at the ECMC burn unit. She's been there since the explosion killed her sister Sarah and destroyed the family's home in Wilson last month.
Magazine, although she does have a very nice figure. I've said that if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her.
Stop it! Oh, it's so weird. Stop. You know what? You are sick.
Isn't that terrible?
Yeah.
Well,
you're known for saying outrageous things, Mr. Trump.
Who are you, Woody Allen?
What's the favorite thing you have in common with your father?
Either real estate or golf.
Donald, with your daughter?
Well, I was going to say sex, but I can't relate that.
Released audio from back in 2005. Donald Trump was caught on a hot mic while waiting to appear on a soap opera. Now, a little spoiler alert for you before we roll this. When he doesn't know he's being recorded, it gets really weird. Let's listen.
The gold. I better use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything.
Hello, how are you? Hi.
Mr. Trump, how
nice
are you?
seeing you. Terrific.
Pleasure to meet you.
Terrific. You know Billy Bush?
How are you?
Nice to see you. How you doing, Ariane?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Are you ready to be a soap star?
We're ready. Let's go. Make me a soap star.
How about a little hug for the Donald? He just got off the bus.
Would you like a little hug,
Okay,
darling?
absolutely. Melania said this was okay.
I just got off the bus.
I said it, I was wrong, and I apologize. I said it, I was wrong, and I apologize.
Stars that they can grab women by the...
Well, that's if you look over the last million years, I guess that's been largely true. Not always, but largely true. Unfortunately or fortunately.